Character animation. I have a duck. It doesn't look like a real duck, but you get the idea. So I've built this using various different shapes and sticking it together. Now, in terms of what we need to do to make this animated, we need to join all these shapes together so they're not all separate pieces. You might not have to, but I find this is the best way to do it. So I'm going to highlight them all in an object mode, and I'm going to press Control J on my keyboard or right click and press join, and it joins them so they're all one thing. And I can rename that so it says duck up the top. Now, sometimes when you try to join things together, it doesn't always work. You might have to do it bit by bit, so the foot to the leg, and then the leg with the foot to the body, etc., etc. But I've been quite lucky in this case. Now, I'm going to need to add an armature to this, so basically a skeleton to make it be able to be animated to some extent. And the way I do that, I just simply go to add armature, and you're probably thinking, well, where is the armature? But if I click on this here, the wireframe, you'll see that it is there in the middle, which is still a little bit tricky to kind of see and to click on. So what I'm actually going to do at this point is just hide the duck so you can see what it looks like. And this has, it's a bone basically, which has a top and a bottom, and that's the bone which is in between it. Now, like I said, it is a bit tricky to see when you've actually got the wireframe, and you can't see it at all when you're actually looking at it in that view. But what we can do down here, because I've still got the armature selected, look, I'm going to go down to data, I think it's data, viewport display, and if I scroll down and I press in front, then we can see actually inside the duck, and we can kind of scroll around to see where that bone is. Now, what I'm going to do, I can actually move that as it is, but but it only moves as a giant object. But what I actually want to do at this point, I want to actually make this the spine of my duck. So I actually want it to start down here and actually go up to the bottom of the heads then. So that top bit will be there, bottom bit there. But I can't do that in object mode. So I'm going to go to edit mode, and I'm literally just going to grab these bits one by one, and I'm going to move them bit by bit. So as you can see now, I can actually click on and move different parts of that bone. I'm also going to do the same for this guy here. And the tip I do is, or the way I like to do it is, look at it from the X side of things, look at it from the Y. That's kind of where I'm expecting it to be. So if I click in the middle and drag it across, it brings the whole thing like so. And then from up above, if you need to, you can kind of get an idea of where it is. And obviously, you can move around like that. Now, my next thing is I need to make a bone to actually represent the skull. So I'm going to click on this top part here, press E on my keyboard, and what happens is then I get another bone coming from that bone there. There is an option, which I'll show you in a moment, and I'm actually just going to drop that there for the time being. And I'm just going to move around so I can see that it's kind of in the right place. So it's a little bit wonky there. So I'm actually going to move that top bit so it's more or less straight. And there is an option to go to add bone, but what it does, it actually adds a separate bone to the skeleton, which is a bit kind of pointless in some ways. There's probably a use for it. So I'm just going to continue clicking on these points and pressing E to bring out the next part. So there's going to be the beak, and I'm going to do the remainder of this in slow motion. Well, not slow motion, in fast motion, because it's going to take ages to show you all this stuff. So bear with me a second. So from this point, you can see that I've got all my bones in place. I've got my spine, I've got my head, which doesn't go to the top of the head, I know. I've also got my beak. I've got a tail, which is sticking out of the back. And I've also got legs. I suppose the bottom half of the leg, if that's the right way of putting it. And I've also got the feet. Now, the idea is if I go to pose mode, which is wonderful, I can then move these. So if I actually click on like the leg, for example, and because they're all connected, and I go to rotate, as I rotate the top of the leg, then you can see it brings up the bottom of the leg and the foot as well. So that's how kind of armatures work. And I can do the same for the neck, I can do the same for the spine, the other leg, etc., etc. But as you notice, as I was kind of moving this, it wasn't actually moving the duck at all, which is kind of a bit pointless in that respect. So what we're going to need to do, I think I've got to go back to object mode for this. I've got to click on the duck first of all, hold down Shift and then click on our armature. And it's got to be done in that order. The creature or the character first and then the armature. If I then right click on it and go to Parent and click on Object at the very top, this appears down in the bottom left-hand corner. And from this, I just want to click with automatic weights. And it does a little bit of processing. It attaches it to it. Surely, I can't think. It does get there in the end. And I'm just going to untick the armature so we can't actually see it anymore. We can just see the duck. But the difference is this time on my duck, so the armature is actually there and the duck is somewhere within it then. I can now click on object mode and go to, well, what am I doing? I click on the armature, sorry. I go to object mode and choose pose mode. And this time we can't actually see the bones, but if I actually rotate the foot, it's now attached and other parts of the body start to move as well. So I can do the same for the head. I can make it go side to side and the beak works, but I know this is going to go bonkers now when I do this. For some reason, I can't get this to work, but I can click on the beak and I can make the beak rotate. But for some reason, the eyeballs kind of actually that works in some ways. I might keep it like that. But I know in the past, I can't figure out how to do it, and I can make the tail kind of wibble and wobble as well. Now, in terms of animating, it's exactly the same as if you were animating just a block in that respect. But this time we're actually thinking about what is it I'm actually going to move. So maybe on frame number one, if I press record and I have the duck's head, if I click on it here somewhere, there he goes. And if I just click on object across here so we can have a look at the location, rotations, and so on. If I rotate it a little bit to the right, and I just lock the positions here because I think it's actually done a keyframe for us already. And then on frame number 10, maybe, or frame number 11 will be fine. I'm going to rock it back the other way. And potentially I could do that over and over again. If I just play that back, then you get it so it's actually moving left and right. So this is perfect in respect of making something move in a direction and maybe, and as you click on different things, like you'll notice that there are keyframes, but I can actually make the foot come up and the other foot go back. Because I'm still recording, so it's recording all this stuff. Whoops, wrong one. Actually, I just clicked on the foot, not the leg. So there's the leg. And you might have to rotate around then to kind of see what it's actually looking at. So we get this impression then on these different parts. We can get it so it looks like it is kind of walking. So let's go on the other side as well. I'll click on this guy. Oops, that's not right. Let's click on that one there. I keep clicking on the wrong stuff. There it is. I've got a feeling that's going to be the foot now there. No, there are. That's fine. And you can make that happen. You can make the tail twist a little bit as well. So the idea is when you do this over and over and over again, and you might want to look at the numbers you've got for each of these because I tend to kind of try to get it so it looks the same on this frame, but it does on that frame. I don't know why it's not showing us that. Maybe it's because we're because normally I look at the numbers and kind of copy the numbers across. But the idea is we then have a little animation. If we knock it up to the end, so it's 20. When I'm playing it, it kind of does this little walking animation and it's waddling back and forth. And as I said, you can actually get this. So the whole thing itself, I'm trying to stop it. Why isn't it stopping? There we go. The whole thing, you can actually make it move. So it's on frame one here, and then maybe on frame 20, it is, let's click on record. It is down here somewhere. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's click the whole thing actually to see if that works. We drag it down to there. So then it looks like, oh, I think it worked there. But the idea is you can actually add these types of like animations to it to make it move. I think I just messed up that last bit. So anyway, that's how you do armatures. I'm just wondering how I'm going to do that on my animation now. Ta-da! Look, his legs are moving. Kind of looks like he's walking. Couple of things I want to show you on Blender. So that's my goat. I've got everything hidden away. This is actually a separate file, to be honest with you. I haven't got done anything on his head, so I'm just going to hide the headway. And if I click on the body and I'm in object mode, when I press play, it actually animates. So you're probably thinking, well, how is it animating without all these keyframes down here? Now, if I actually go to I'm going to stop it from playing a second. If I go on the armature again, click on it once, and I go to pose mode, and then I click on this, you can actually see the objects in there, and you can see that they've got these keyframes associated with them. So if I press play, then you can actually see how the armature is moving. Now, one of the things I did on this, and it was a bit of a bit of a learning curve, I actually clicked on each of these bones. So bone number 7 is this top left one here, and then on frame 0 and frame 1 and frame 20 and so on. It doesn't let me do it for some reason when I come back in, but I actually looked at specific figures. So when I rotated by a certain amount and the location was a certain amount, I kind of had it. So when I went back to that same pose, it was exactly the same number. So it looks like it is actually properly walking, not perfectly because there's no such thing as perfectly, but basically that's how that works there.